Starting off this countdown, we have the Lice Cure. Back in the early 20th century, if you got a bad case of head lice, you'd be going around smelling like a gas station for weeks. Why? Well, the cure for head lice was to be doused with gasoline. Turns out this actually worked, although it was pretty dangerous. If you walked by an open flame, you run the risk of catching on fire and having your whole head go up in flames. I mean, hey, that would work too to get rid of lice. But yeah, thank gosh that we invented medicated shampoo that kills those pests. I doubt anyone would want to soak their head in gasoline. In our 9th spot, we have the heroin cure. In the mid-1800s, heroin was actually used to cure a number of ailments, including headaches. Yeah, that hardcore seems a little intense for a headache, am I right? Well, it's not like they had Advil back then. So doctors would actually administer this to patients. It was available for many years in over-the-counter kits. It was used as casually as ibuprofen today. They thought it was a better alternative to morphine, which was used during the Civil War, which a number of people got addicted to. But in the end, a number of people got addicted to this drug as well. And then it was found out how dangerous it was. But by then, hundreds of thousands of Americans were already hooked on it. In our 8th spot, we have the Animal Bile. Back in the day, a number of animals were used to treat different ailments in China. In particular, animal bile was very popular. So they would use elephant bile to treat bad breath. I don't know about you, but I would rather my breath smell stale than like elephant bile. Whatever that smells like can't be pleasant. But yeah, Chinese physicians and pharmacists would take the elephant bile, dilute it in water, and then give it to people to drink. Think that was bad? Wait until you see what they did to python bile. The bile was used to treat genital ulcers, so it would be used as a topical ointment and rubbed on the affected area down there. I just want to know whose job it was to catch the snakes, you know? Coming in at number 7, we have the urine mouthwash. I'm sorry, if you're eating or drinking right now, you're about to lose your appetite. So back in ancient Rome, Roman physicians believed that urine could be used as a teeth whitener. Bonus part was that it was free. So the Romans were actually brushing their teeth with urine. What's worse is that some people collected the urine from public urinals. What's worse than using pee to brush your teeth? Using someone else's pee to brush your teeth. It was apparently the ammonia in our pee that was said to remove the stains from their teeth. Talk about bad morning breath though. But then that's when you use the elephant bile. See, it's all coming together now. Coming in at number 6, we have arsenic. Nowadays, we know that arsenic is a deadly poison. Well, back in the day, people would actually use arsenic to treat fevers and headaches. In the end, people would die from arsenic poisoning instead of actually being cured. Swallowing high levels of arsenic can cause nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle weakness and cramping, skin rashes, and other problems. Continual exposure or exposure to it in a high amount can kill ya. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with mercury. Mercury was another chemical that was used back in the day in treatments. Ancient Persians and Greeks used mercury as an ointment, whereas in ancient China, mercury pills were given to people thinking it would increase their lifespan and vitality. One of the famous cases would be with China's emperor Qin Shi Huang. He had the desire to live forever, so he set out to find a life elixir that would give him immortality. In the end, he was given mercury pills. They were said to be life-prolonging, and so he took one every day. But by doing so, he got poisoned by the mercury, and it drove him insane, and then he died. Others who used mercury died from liver or kidney damage from the mercury poison. Coming in at number 4, we have maggot therapy. If you all are afraid of creepy crawlies, then this next point will make you squirm. In the American Civil War, doctors would use maggot therapy to disinfect injured soldiers' wounds. In fact, this procedure dates back as far as the Old Testament. It was mentioned in the book of Job. Now, why maggots? Well, they can dissolve up to 25 micrograms of infected tissue in under 24 hours. They also only attack the dead flesh and leave the healthy flesh alone. And in 2004, it was actually approved by the FDA. But the maggots are single-use and have to be stored in sterile conditions and then disposed of after as biohazardous waste. Moving on to number 3, we have bee venom therapy. So back in the day when ancient Greeks were suffering from arthritis or other joint pain/problems, they would resolve this by getting bees to sting them in their problem areas. This was because the bee venom contains a protein called melittin, which has anti-inflammatory properties. But obviously this was risky because 1, it causes skin irritation, and 2, a lot of people are allergic to bee stings, and so they would go into anaphylactic shock. Fun fact, some people still use bee venom therapy today, but it is not approved by the FDA. It's way too risky, they say. Coming in at number 2, we have the tapeworms. If you didn't lose your appetite yet, this one will surely get to you. During Victorian times, people came up with drastic ways to lose weight. One of them involved tapeworms. Basically, a person would eat a tapeworm egg and then it would hatch and grow inside of the person's intestines. So whatever you ate, the tapeworm would also eat. This would then allow them to lose weight without going on a diet and eat whatever they want. And it's as disgusting as it is dangerous. A number of people have died from this practice. The tapeworm can lead to blocked bile ducts, respiratory failure, and dementia, among other things. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the tobacco smoke enema. People back in the day were wilded. Like, they came up with the most bizarre medical practice, and then people willingly hopped on the trend. Like, yeah, this will for sure work. Let's take the tobacco smoke enema, for example. In the late 1700s, people were like, tobacco, what if we used it as an enema? And then just, blow the smoke up our arse. Apparently, someone fell into a river and almost drowned. That was until they used a smoke enema to warm up the victim, but also stimulate their respiration. So they were doing CPR from down below. From there, smoke enema kits were actually left near rivers in case this happened to others. After that, it became a fad, and soon it was said to cure everything from headaches to cramps to even typhoid and cholera. Little did they know the negative effects that tobacco has on the body. In the early 1800s, when they saw how damaging it was to the body, they stopped using this. Starting off this countdown, we have geophagy. This is a practice in which early humans would eat dirt in order to heal themselves. It all started when they saw animals eating clay and dirt, and they were like, if it doesn't make them sick, let's try and eat it as well. Maybe they're eating it for a reason, and we should be too. So whenever people were sick, they would eat dirt or clay. Doubt that it tasted very good, and not sure what it really did for their bodies, but they did it. Coming in at number 9, we have the Powder of Sympathy. This was a form of sympathetic medicine that was used in the 17th century. Basically, this special powder was put on a weapon that inflicted a person a wound, and it was said to heal the injury. Yeah, you heard me. The treatment was placed on the weapon, not the actual wound. So the powder was made up of green vitriol that was first dissolved in water and then afterwards recrystallized in the sun. Apparently, the Duke of Buckingham healed his secretary who was suffering from gangrene by soaking his bloody bandage in this solution. I don't know, it just sounds crazy to me. Moving on to number 8, we have the cuts and broken bones. Back in the day, it was fairly common for humans to get scrapes, cuts, or to break their bones. That's because they would have to compete with animals for food, as well as run away from animals who were their natural predators. So if they did get a cut, obviously they didn't have band-aids back then, so they would use mud. Once the wet mud or clay was put on a person's skin, it would dry up and seal the wound. For broken bones, clay was also used. The broken bones were cased in a pot made from mud. It's pretty resourceful if you ask me. In our 7th spot, we have the painkillers. Imagine going through a massive surgery nowadays without painkillers, or getting a headache and not being able to cure it with Advil. It would suck pretty badly, right? Well, back in the day, early humans actually had painkillers. They used poplar. Poplar is a plant that contains salicylic acid, which has pain-relieving, anti-inflammatory, and temperature-lowering effects. After studying dental calculus on the teeth of Neanderthals, they found traces of poplar, suggesting they ate this plant in low doses as a painkiller. In our 6th spot, we have the animal cure. So according to the ancient Egyptians, a number of animals had natural curing properties. For example, lizard blood would be used as a topical ointment, whereas dead mice were used as bandages. Not only that, but horse saliva was said to cure a woman's sex drive. So women with a low libido were often doused in horse saliva. How great does that sound? Did it actually work? Who knows? But the Egyptians thought so. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the animal dung. So like I just mentioned, animals were thought to have curing properties. In fact, their poop was thought to be a cure-all. So Egyptian physicians would use donkey, gazelle, dog, and even human dung in their remedies. It was thought to be good for healing and to ward off bad spirits. However, it would seem as if most of the times people would develop tetanus and other infections after using excrement on their body. But believe it or not, research shows that the microflora found in some types of animal feces actually contains antibiotic substances. So there you go. They were definitely onto something there. In our 4th spot, we have corpse medicine. Sounds gross, and that's because it definitely is gross. Back in the day, an elixir was given to people suffering from persistent headaches, muscle cramps, or stomach ulcers. What was in this magic elixir, you say? Well, human flesh, blood, or bone. This was called corpse medicine and was around for hundreds of years. So back in the day, Romans thought the blood of fallen gladiators would cure epilepsy. So when a Roman gladiator lost their life, their blood was collected and then sold as medicine. The Romans believed that the warrior's blood had magical powers. Sometimes they would even take out the warrior's liver and eat them raw, again thinking that this would cure them. In the 12th century, people would grind up mummies looted from Egypt and make something called mummy powder, which was also supposed to have healing properties. Now, the type of medicine that you received depended on your ailment. For example, if you suffered from headaches, you'd be given a treatment made out of a dead person's skull. If you had muscle aches, you'd be given human fat, so on and so on. In fact, people would attend executions just so that they could collect a cup of fresh human blood. Moving on to number 3, we have the Babylonian skull cure. During ancient Babylonian times, most illnesses were thought to be caused by a demonic entity or were a form of punishment from the gods who were angered by your wrongdoings. Therefore, the doctors back then acted more as priests or exorcists instead of actual doctors. So when people were sick, they would perform magical rituals to cure them. For example, let's say that you had a bad habit of grinding your teeth at night. The doctor would then make you sleep by a human skull for a week as a way to exorcise the spirit that was causing you to grind your teeth. They thought maybe a spirit was trying to contact you in your sleep. Anyways, this treatment gets even more messed up. Aside from the sleeping next to the skull, the individual had to also kiss and lick the skull 7 times each night. Yes, you heard me correctly. I'm just glad that we no longer practice this because I'm constantly grinding my teeth at night. Moving on to number 2, we have bloodletting. Thousands of years ago, early humans believed that sickness was a result of bad blood. So what way to cure this than to get rid of the bad blood inside of you? Hence why the practice bloodletting became a thing. It's said that this practice started with the ancient Sumerians and Egyptians, but didn't become a common practice until the classical Greece and Rome time period. Hippocrates and Galen believed that the human body was filled with 4 substances: yellow bile, black bile, phlegm, and blood. If they got sick, they believed that that meant that the person had bad blood. So they would cut a person's vein and drain some of the blood. In other cases, they would use leeches to suck the bad blood directly out from their skin, which, obviously it's a risky business to just cut a vein, and as a result, a number of people accidentally bled to death. Starting off this countdown, we have the removal of organs. Dr. Henry Andrews Cotton believed that mental health problems were caused by infections within the body. So he thought that by removing organs, it could remove any mental health problems. He would have patients' teeth, tonsils, gallbladders, stomachs, spleens, testicles, or colons removed, and figured that that would cure them. Which, as you could guess, it didn't really work. He just exaggerated the success rate. In our 9th spot today, we have Obsidian Blades. Fun fact, but back in the day, Obsidian Blades were used during procedures. Obsidian Blades are at least 100 times sharper than stainless steel surgical scalpels. But the only problem is that it could break or shatter into pieces and then get into the wound and cause a series of problems. But apparently cuts made from them may heal more rapidly with less scarring, so that's a plus. But it is not FDA approved in the US. A number of small surgeons in other countries, though, do use these blades. In our 8th spot, we have bariatric surgery, otherwise known as the lobotomy of the stomach, which just sounds gross. This is a form of weight loss surgery, and it's still done today. You might know it better as gastric bypass. There are multiple methods that can be done to help individuals lose weight. The first being a band placed onto the stomach to basically shrink the size of the stomach so you're less hungry and you get full quicker. Or parts of the patient's stomach is actually removed. Although it's FDA approved, a number of people have had serious health complications following this procedure. And probably hundreds of years from now, scientists will analyze our modern medical practice and be like, what on earth did they do? They tied off someone's stomach? How wild. Moving on to number 7, we have insulin shock therapy. This was a form of psychiatric treatment used from the 1930s to around the 1950s. It involved repeatedly giving patients large doses of insulin. This would end up giving them daily comas over the course of several weeks. It was thought that this treatment could cure schizophrenia, but by the 1950s it became less popular as a doctor claimed that the treatment had no effect on schizophrenia at all. Instead, it could cause irreversible brain damage. In our 6th spot, we have trepanning. This was another wild treatment that was said to treat mental health issues or even migraines. It's said to be one of the oldest forms of surgery in history. So they thought that mental health issues or migraines were caused by a demon or evil spirit being trapped inside of a person's brain. So they invented trepanning, which basically involved drilling a hole into the human skull. This was then said to free the evil inside of them, causing them these issues. Scientists first discovered this procedure after analyzing cave paintings from the prehistoric people and saw that they may have done this procedure. After the procedure was complete, if the person was still alive, they would actually keep the part of their skull as a good luck charm. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the shock treatments. Shock treatments were used to cure a number of problems, including impotence. Some doctors would cure this by filling a bathtub with electrodes and then having the person sit in it and zap them. Another method was placing a rod with currents running through this inside the man's urethra. It wouldn't cure them on the first go though, so they would need to undergo this treatment multiple times. And each treatment lasted 5 to 8 minutes. Nice. Then by the late 1800s, electric belts were said to cure kidney pains, nerve issues, backaches, headaches, and fatigue. Moving on to number 4, we have the nosebleeds. You know how nosebleeds were cured back in the day? With a red hot poker. That's right, but it's not what you think. They didn't shove it up the person's nose to cauterize the wound. What they would do was hold the red hot poker under the nose, or they would tell the person to steep a linen rag with vinegar, burn it, and then blow that up a person's nose, which would probably burn their nostrils like vinegar. Oh no. Another way that they would cure nosebleeds would be by getting blood removed from another part of the body. This was known as bloodletting. Around 200 CE, if someone had continual nosebleeds, then they would have their elbow bled. In our 3rd spot, we have the cysts. Bible cysts were the name given to cysts that developed on one's hand or wrists. It was given the name Bible cyst because one way that they would cure it was by whacking a Bible over it to pop it. They used the Bible since it was big and heavy. Another way that they would try to get rid of these cysts were by touching it with a dead man's hand, or by taking a bullet that they killed an animal with and then strapping it to the person's wrist. Don't ask me why they thought it would heal the cyst, but they believed it would. In our 2nd spot today, we have the cigarette cure. Did you know that back in the day, asthma was thought to be cured by cigarettes? Yeah, you heard me correctly. Meanwhile, cigarettes and smoking damages your lungs and can cause asthma. And the cigarettes used in the late 19th and early 20th centuries were made with a number of toxic ingredients like stramonium, belladonna, and of course, tobacco. And in our number one spot today, we have the yellow soup, and you are about to lose your appetite. I hope no one is eating right now. So back in the 4th century, a doctor thought it was a good idea to take dried stool from a healthy individual to then give it to another person suffering from diarrhea or food poisoning. The person would then ingest the poop orally. By the 16th century, another Chinese doctor created yellow soup, which was a broth containing dried or fermented poop from a healthy person, and then it was given to someone suffering from the same symptoms. I can't even imagine what that tasted like, and honestly, I don't even want to know. I don't. Nowadays, stool transplantation or fecal microbiota transplantation is used, but not in the same way. This time, the stool is given by an enema or from inserting a tube into the person's stomach or small intestines.